Roman Reigns, the tribal chief, the head of the table, the man who has dominated WWE for years, has been rushed to a California hospital in a shocking and terrifying turn of events. And the entire wrestling world is in chaos, because this all unfolded immediately after Seth Rollins, his former Shield brother, collapsed right in front of him. Fans in attendance were left speechless, children crying in the stands, and grown adults clutching their heads in disbelief as two of WWE's biggest superstars fell in the same night. This isn't some storyline twist. This isn't some scripted angle. This is horrifying reality crashing into the world of wrestling, and the way WWE has handled this situation has fans more furious than ever. Here's how it all went down. Seth Rollins, already visibly exhausted before his match, looked pale, sluggish, and unsteady on his feet. Multiple fans noticed he wasn't moving like himself, struggling to catch his breath between spots. And yet, WWE let the match go on. They let Seth put his body on the line in front of thousands, knowing damn well he wasn't at 100%. And then it happened. In the middle of the ring, Seth's legs gave out, his body went limp, and he collapsed. Paramedics sprinted down to the ring as the crowd went dead silent. But that was only the beginning. Roman Reigns, watching all of this unfold, reportedly rushed from backstage to check on Seth. Witnesses said Roman looked panicked. The tribal chief, usually stone-faced and untouchable, had fear written all over his face. He knelt beside Seth, shouting for help, trying to keep the crowd calm. But moments later, the unthinkable happened. Roman himself collapsed. He clutched his chest, stumbled backward, and hit the floor. Fans gasped in shock, some even screaming, not knowing what was happening. Within seconds, chaos erupted. EMTs who were already attending to Seth had to scramble to Roman as well. The crowd was in tears, chants of, "Roman! Roman!" breaking out, while others simply stood frozen, unable to process what they were seeing. Two of the biggest stars in WWE history, Shield brothers, lying motionless within minutes of each other. Roman was rushed out on a stretcher, oxygen mask strapped to his face, with officials sprinting to clear the way. Seth was carried out moments later, his condition just as alarming. And now, reports confirm that Roman Reigns has been admitted into a California hospital in critical condition. WWE has tried to stay quiet, offering nothing more than a vague, medical emergency statement, but fans aren't buying it. Rumors are swirling that Roman may have suffered a heart-related episode, while Seth's collapse is being attributed to extreme exhaustion and possible internal complications. This is the nightmare scenario no one ever wanted to see. Roman Reigns, the face of WWE, the man who carried the company through the pandemic, who fought through leukemia and came back stronger than ever, is once again fighting for his life. And the fact that Seth Rollins, his closest brother in this business, collapsed right before him makes this story almost too painful to comprehend. The anger from fans is boiling over. How many times are we going to see superstars pushed past their limits until their bodies break? How many warning signs have to be ignored before WWE finally admits they care more about profit than the health of their performers? Seth Rollins had been wrestling through injuries for months. Roman Reigns had been showing signs of fatigue. And instead of protecting them, WWE shoved them into high-stakes matches and relentless schedules. And now, here we are. Two men who built this company lying in hospital beds, hooked up to machines. The backlash is immediate. Social media has exploded with hashtag pray for Roman and hashtag save Seth trending worldwide. Fans are flooding WWE's pages with outrage, demanding accountability, demanding answers. This isn't just sadness, this is fury. Because deep down, the WWE universe knows this didn't have to happen. Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins didn't collapse because of bad luck. They collapsed because WWE ran them into the ground and ignored the warning signs. And the Shield connection makes this all the more heartbreaking. Once brothers, once rivals, now both fighting for their lives in the same hospital. The visual of Roman and Seth, side by side on stretchers, being rushed out of the arena will haunt fans forever. Children who idolize them are crying themselves to sleep tonight, terrified they may never see their heroes again. And now the entire wrestling world is asking, how bad is it? Will Roman Reigns ever wrestle again? Will Seth Rollins recover? And if the worst happens, will WWE even survive the fallout of losing two of its biggest stars because of their own negligence? As Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins were rushed into ambulances, the atmosphere outside the California hospital turned into pure chaos. Fans who had followed from the arena gathered in the parking lot, chanting, "Save Roman" and "Save Seth," while holding up homemade signs. Security struggled to hold the crowd back as more and more people arrived, desperate for updates. This wasn't just a wrestling story anymore. It was a human crisis, and the world wanted answers. Inside the hospital, tension was at an all-time high. Roman's family rushed to his side. The Anoa dynasty, one of the most powerful bloodlines in wrestling history, filled the waiting room. Witnesses said the energy was unbearable, family members sobbing, others pacing the halls, some too shocked to speak. Paul Heyman was spotted arriving, visibly shaken, clutching his phone, reportedly in constant communication with WWE headquarters. Roman's wife was seen breaking down, crying into the arms of family members, whispering over and over, "Not again. Please, not again." The shadow of Roman's past leukemia battle weighed heavily on everyone's mind, fueling fears that his health struggles had returned in a devastating way. And then there was Seth Rollins. His collapse was equally terrifying, and his wife, Becky Lynch, was seen rushing into the hospital with tears streaming down her face, holding their daughter tightly. Becky reportedly confronted WWE officials right there in the hallway, screaming at them for ignoring Seth's condition. Eyewitnesses claimed she shouted, "You knew he wasn't okay. You pushed him until he broke. This is on you." Nurses had to step in to calm her down as doctors worked behind closed doors to stabilize Seth. The locker room back at the arena was just as chaotic. Reports say multiple superstars were furious, some even threatening to walk out. Kevin Owens, who has never been shy about voicing his frustration, was overheard saying, "We're not machines. We're not invincible. How many more of us have to collapse before they start caring?" Even veterans like Randy Orton and AJ Styles were reportedly outraged, privately telling colleagues they were considering pulling out of upcoming shows unless major changes were made. But WWE management? Silent, cold, detached. Instead of owning up to their negligence, they issued a short, generic statement calling Roman and Seth's incidents unfortunate health complications. No apology, no accountability, just a vague corporate shield designed to protect their brand. Fans saw right through it, and the backlash was immediate. Social media exploded. #Justice for Roman and #Save Seth dominated global trends. Thousands of fans canceled their subscriptions to WWE's streaming platforms, posting screenshots as proof, with captions like, "Not one more dollar until you protect your wrestlers." Other fans organized protests, planning to picket outside upcoming live events. Petitions calling for WWE to implement mandatory health safeguards for performers gathered tens of thousands of signatures within hours. Sponsors started to panic. Major corporate partners reportedly called WWE executives, demanding transparency and threatening to pull funding if the company didn't show accountability. For the first time in years, the financial backbone of WWE is shaking. Losing Roman and Seth is one nightmare. Losing sponsors on top of that could devastate the company's future. But through all the outrage, heartbreak remains the loudest emotion. Roman Reigns, the tribal chief, the man who carried WWE on his shoulders for years, is fighting for his life. Seth Rollins, one of the greatest workhorses in wrestling history, is lying unconscious in the same hospital. Two brothers who once fought side by side in the Shield, now broken by the very system they helped build. And the updates aren't comforting. Doctors have said Roman is in critical condition, being monitored around the clock, while Seth's condition is described as unstable but being treated. That's medical code for this. Neither of them are safe. Every hour could be the difference between recovery and tragedy. The images of Roman being carried out on a stretcher, oxygen mask strapped to his face, and Seth lying limp beside him have burned themselves into the minds of fans everywhere. Children are crying, parents are angry, and even non-wrestling media outlets are running with the headline, "WWE superstars collapse in same night, Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins hospitalized." This has become a global story, and the company cannot escape it. And yet, the most haunting part is this: everyone knows this didn't have to happen. The warning signs were there. The exhaustion was visible. The cracks were showing. But WWE refused to listen. And now, they may lose the two pillars that held their empire together. And here's where things spiral completely out of control. As Roman Reigns is being wheeled into the emergency wing of the California Medical Center, Seth Rollins, barely conscious after his collapse, was reportedly stabilized for just a few moments before his body gave out again. The man who has been nicknamed the Visionary looked more broken than ever before. Doctors had to administer oxygen immediately, and yet the whispers around the hospital halls started spreading fast. Was this more than simple exhaustion? Was this WWE negligence? Fans waiting outside captured footage that sent chills down everyone's spine. Roman's family rushing into the hospital lobby, visibly shaken, tears in their eyes. Paul Heyman, who has always been seen as the calm strategist of the bloodline, couldn't even keep it together. For the first time ever, the man who prides himself on control was seen with trembling hands, whispering to hospital staff, demanding updates, almost begging them to let him in right away. Now here's where you have to stop and really think. How could WWE allow not just one but two of their biggest superstars to crumble in back-to-back medical emergencies? Rollins collapses inside the arena. Roman Reigns, already dealing with serious issues, suddenly gets rushed into the same hospital. Fans aren't buying that this is just bad luck. They're calling this a complete failure of management, a failure of protection, and a failure of humanity. Because let's be honest, Roman has been carrying the company on his back for years. He's worked hurt, worked sick, carried through pain, sacrificed for this business in ways the casual fan may never even understand. And Seth Rollins. The guy's been battling through knee injuries, back issues, and still putting on match of the year performances. And what does WWE do? They push them harder, demand more, stack schedule after schedule until the human body finally says, enough. Inside sources claim Roman's condition was far more serious than initially reported. There was talk of severe chest pains before his hospitalization, something that cannot be ignored. Meanwhile, Seth's collapse has already sparked investigations from medical staff wondering if dehydration and exhaustion alone can explain it, or if there's a deeper, more dangerous underlying issue that WWE failed to address. And you want to know the craziest part? Fans who were in attendance said the show continued almost as if nothing happened. Seth was carried out, Roman was taken away, but WWE barely acknowledged it, business as usual. That is what infuriates people most, the blatant disregard for human life in favor of, the show must go on. People aren't just upset, they're enraged. They're demanding accountability. They're demanding change. They're demanding that Vince McMahon's fingerprints, still felt on this company despite his retirement, be examined, that Triple H step up, that someone in management face the heat for pushing wrestlers to the brink. Because what's at stake here isn't just the careers of Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins, it's their lives. And if WWE doesn't act now, this could be the darkest chapter in company history. The whispers in the hallway had grown into full-on chaos. Hospital staff were being pushed back by security as WWE officials rushed down corridors, their phones glued to their ears, their faces pale with disbelief. Triple H's car had pulled into the emergency bay with squealing tires, and the look on his face as he stormed inside told the world one thing. This wasn't just a scare, this wasn't something WWE could write off as minor injuries. Roman Reigns, the face of the company, the man who carried WWE on his back for years, was being treated in one room, and in the next hallway over, Seth Rollins lay unconscious after collapsing in front of cameras earlier that night. The two pillars of WWE, the heartbeat of an entire generation of wrestling fans, were fighting battles that had nothing to do with championships or storylines. This was about survival, and the most chilling part. No one could give a clear update. Doctors were dodging questions, security guards kept the press at bay, and the few superstars who'd managed to rush to California looked as broken as the fans felt watching from home. Kevin Owens was spotted pacing in the waiting room, his hands shaking as he muttered under his breath. Becky Lynch, still in her gear, refused to leave Seth's side, demanding answers from doctors who avoided eye contact. And Paul Heyman, normally so composed, so articulate, looked as if he had aged 10 years in 10 minutes, slumped into a chair with his head in his hands. The news started breaking across outlets almost instantly. ESPN, TMZ, and every Wrestling Insider platform flooded timelines with headlines that seemed too surreal to believe. Roman Reigns rushed to California hospital. Seth Rollins collapses mid-segment. The Shield in crisis. Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok exploded with millions of posts within the hour. Hashtags like #pray for Roman and #stay strong Seth dominated the worldwide trends. But it wasn't just the fans who were panicking, it was the locker room. Reports started surfacing that several wrestlers had threatened to walk out of shows if WWE didn't start prioritizing the health of its superstars. One anonymous insider was quoted saying, "We've been pushed beyond our limits for too long. If something happens to Roman or Seth, there will be no WWE as we know it." Meanwhile, outside the hospital, fans had already started gathering with signs, candles, and chants. A vigil was forming right there in the California night, the crowd growing larger with each hour, their voices echoing through the streets as they prayed for their tribal chief and their visionary. Inside the building, Triple H was seen exiting a closed-door meeting with hospital administrators. His face was grim, and he refused to answer questions, but his silence spoke louder than any official statement could. Something was wrong. Very wrong. Theories began to spiral out of control online. Was this stress-related? A result of the punishing schedules, the endless travel, the constant demand for just one more match? Or was there something darker behind the scenes, something WWE didn't want the world to know? Some fans were convinced this wasn't coincidence. Roman and Seth, two of the most important superstars in the company, falling within hours of each other. That didn't feel random, it felt like a warning sign. By the time midnight hit in California, the world of wrestling had been turned upside down. Families who'd grown up watching the Shield dominate were now sitting in their living rooms crying. Fans who had screamed, "Acknowledge me," just weeks before at SummerSlam now whispered desperate prayers that Roman would walk out of that hospital alive. And Seth Rollins, the man who had once been called the architect, now lay powerless, his fate in the hands of medical professionals instead of his own resilience. WWE had no choice but to cancel upcoming live events. For the first time in years, the company was paralyzed, unable to promote, unable to entertain, unable to do anything but wait. And that's the cruel reality. No matter how scripted or controlled WWE storylines are, when real life barges in, there's no script. No creative direction. No guaranteed happy ending. And so the question lingered like smoke in the air. Would Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins, two of the most iconic performers of their generation, even make it back to the ring? Or would this night in California be remembered forever as the moment the wrestling world changed forever?